Welcome to No Password Required, a monthly conversation that gives you an up-close and personal look at the world of cybersecurity.
Hello and welcome to No Password Required, a podcast dedicated to exploring the minds and personalities that make up the field of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Ernie Ferraresso, and with me, as always, is Jack Clabby. We also have Pablo Torres coming up to have some fun with his segment, Positively Cyber. But first, we need to discuss who we have on the show. On the podcast today, we're going to chat with Shane Young, a senior security consultant at Rapid7. Over the past decade, Shane has found himself in the middle of some great pen testing adventures. His real-life acting and cyber skills would have been a great addition to the Ocean's 11 team. And like the casino heist movies, his stories will keep you hooked till the very end. Speaking of someone that's always on the right side of the law, Jack, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. This is an annual privacy policy update time. And so we're doing a lot of updating privacy policy. So to everyone sort of listening, first quarter of the year, drag out your privacy policy, take a look, make sure it's still accurate. That's our plug for companies this week, Ernie. Between that and trading, my playlists with Pablo for yacht rock music, I have a lot on my plate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the second part is perhaps the most important, is we have to keep that dream alive. If we don't share it with the younger generation, the yacht rock sails off into history.
Well, there's a lot going on. I mean, I want to say one thing though, just because, we've been talking for the past several weeks about what happened in the Capitol. And
yes.
I don't want to touch politics here, right? But I do want to say one thing, that when it started happening and the images of this, what was going on inside, there was some exchange of texts and emails among the community, that we're all a part of. And I got a great text that simply said, it was Windows plus L, right? Which is the lock your keyboard, right? And so that's lock your keyboard, folks. So no matter what happens, right? If the fire alarm goes off, there's something happening, Windows L, lock yourself up. And just, it's a small thing you can do. If you can't secure your papers, just an open L. We have signs in our office, which show that Sean Bean's character, from the Game of Thrones, that say things like, one does not simply walk away from one's computer without pressing Control L. Well, I guess that's a Lord of the Rings reference. That's what it is, a Lord of the Rings. One does not simply walk into Mordor. So it's an open Apple app.
Jack, that's actually probably some of the best advice I've ever heard. And a further reason to it is you got to lock it. Just walk away. Just lock it.
Just lock it. Give it a chance. Give it a chance to work.
That's right. That's right.
All the security on there.
Yeah.
Well, we've been concerned too. So middle of December, right? Everyone probably saw the news. Our listeners probably saw the news about what happened with GoDaddy. But middle of December, this has been occupying our time. GoDaddy puts out a pretty aggressive anti-phishing campaign where they, essentially send some subset of their employees an email from the GoDaddy domain, right? So an in-domain email that, is part of a phishing campaign, but the employees don't know that when they get this. And the email says, happy holiday. Okay, so there's no S on it. Happy holiday, GoDaddy. And it says, though we cannot celebrate together during our annual holiday party, we want to show our appreciation, share a $650 one-time holiday bonus. All right. And then it says, if you want to get your money, you have to click here. And then when you click there, you had to input some information about you. And I think, not the greatest thing. It was not received well by the community. One, I think it had a click-through rate of about 10%, which is pretty darn high for a company like this. But it's preying on, folks. I get why they did it, right?
Yeah.
This is effective. It's an effective thing. It comes from within domain. But things have not been great for lots and lots of Americans for the past several months. And I think it was an amount of money that seemed rational and reasonable. And people were not excited about it. So it had an effect of making everyone not like GoDaddy. And it also happens to be a domain name company and a hosting company, right? So not a company whose audience is going to be well received, if bad news gets out. But I don't know. What do you think the reaction was, Ernie, from the, what did you pick up on this, on the reaction?
So I've been thinking about it from a couple of things, because from the evaluation side, that vector, that's something that you would expect, right? A bad actor is going to create something that looks, smells, and feels, as legit as possible. So that, from that aspect of it, it's spot on. But from the if you look at it from the timing, from the messaging, you're really putting people into yeah, exactly. It's being rather insensitive is the way you could probably achieve your phishing test awareness and such using a different message.
Yeah, that's it. And I think look, the ethics of the thing, and we have on the show today, essentially an expert in pen testing and also physical penetration, and he'll tell us some stories. But I do think that every phishing testing email is a lie, right? So let's just be okay with that, right? It is a lie, but it's the kind of lie that is okay. It's typically allowed under from a legal perspective by the policies and procedures and the customs and practice of the company, right? That there's going to be testing and auditing that's done, and it's not always going to be authentic. But because you can do something, right, doesn't mean you should do something.
Doesn't mean you should. That's right.
Right, and this is not something where a company like this that, you can go on GoDaddy's website and they have tips and tricks for avoiding phishing, right? Because they're comparing it to their own customers. But I think, lawyers, we approach this, as a lawyer at Carlton Fields, or I approach these things when we get involved in tests like this or in audits. We have legal rules of ethics that mean that I cannot lie, nor can I direct anyone else to lie, right? So I can hire a pen testing company on behalf of a client, but I can't direct them in a specific way to send a specific email or not, even though I know they're going to be doing it. There are codes of ethics that are out there for pen testers, but those codes of ethics typically are: make sure that what you do in the system is known to the owner of the system. Make sure you have permission for what to do. Don't exploit knowledge that would put someone in a vulnerable position or is solely designed to embarrass or harass. But for them to do their jobs, they've got to be able to do things a little more creatively. I think that I thought some of the best commentary after the GoDaddy incident was sort of put out in the public in mid-December was, this was effective. And so there were folks who were really admiring it because it was exactly right. It was exactly what would capture people's attention, and it did. But the goal here is not to get a high incidences of success. The goal is to create a culture of compliance and a culture of security. And that's one where, the average user in the system trusts the IT staff and the information security staff and understands that they're not out to harass, embarrass. One angry employee, is probably worth 100 well-trained employees on information security. And so when you're doing these pen tests, my sort of advice from a sort of corporate governance standpoint is do an effective one, but don't do one that would piss off someone when they find out that it's real. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and I think the the era that this is happening in, if people are worried about financially, the COVID lockdown, etc., and then somebody sees, hey, yeah, I'm going to get $650. That may be something that they really needed at the time, and then only to find out they're getting the double whammy. It's not true, and then they, oh, by the way, you got to do some.
That's right. That's right. You probably didn't see a lot of, I read a lot about this, but I didn't see as many Uncle Scrooge metaphors as I expected before the holidays. But I think something like that could.
This is a pretty good, exactly.
Man. There's a legal concept of reliance, right? Where when one person makes a promise and the other person acts in response to that promise, it makes it sometimes that first person is not allowed to withdraw that, right? So if I tell my kids, that I'm going to give them $10 if they mow the lawn, and then they mow the lawn and I don't deliver the $10, I sometimes owe them the $10, right?
Yeah,
it would be hard to say that I was just testing them. So I don't know what's going on at GoDaddy, but then maybe there's something put in place to make things right over there.
Yeah, I would like to think so. And then the other part that you wonder is, do they have some sort of process in the company that this type of email is normal. And this may not have, meaning that oh, hey, listen, this month's giveaway is X. And so you click on it and you fill out they have a raffle or something.
That's right. I'll say one of the things, we've worked with companies that will do training, do cybersecurity training, and they'll talk about we're having a hard time. We did some forced training. We're having a hard time getting people to sign up for the classes, and we talk about it a little bit. And one of the companies that we worked with had told us that one of the employees finally said, "Well, you've trained us to be so careful in what we sign up for, and the program that you're requiring us to sign up for requires us to access a new website and put in the username and password from our system," which I thought was great, right? The reason your information security training isn't working is because you told them not to do exactly the thing you're now asking them to do to sign up for the training.
The reason why your information security training isn't working is because your information security training is working.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you're a company out there and you're requiring your employees to go to some third-party website and use internal credentials, fix that. That shouldn't be how it should operate. Have them create a new set of username and passwords, or just have the darn training be done on your internal systems, or sign them via email or something. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's get creative.
And with that, that said, we're going to take a short break. When we return, Shane's going to take us through a couple of his more adventurous pen testing jobs. So stick around. We got a great show coming up.
Have an idea for a guest or topic? Send an email to info@nopasswordpodcast.com.
Okay, welcome back. Our guest today is Shane Young, a senior security consultant at Rapid7, a Boston-based computer and network security firm. Welcome to No Password Required. So Shane, like we were talking, it's been a while. Haven't seen you since the CTF days at Raymond James, before COVID and all. So what have you been up to?
Not much. Just been hanging out and hacking stuff, and just living the dream out here in Arkansas.
That's great. I can remember when we first met, just hearing your tales of woe and misadventure that kind of got you that you've been up to and what you've been doing. So you've been at this for a while now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been working kind of in the security area since I was young.
Yeah. So what do you mean young? 6 years old, you were breaking into stuff, or was it a little later than that?
No, I was probably about 13. Sadly, we only had dial-up, but my ventures kind of started there. My grandpa gave me a hand-me-down laptop, and it was the slowest laptop in existence, sadly, but I did everything I could to learn from it. Got Linux installed on it and kind of just took off from there.
Shane, can I ask you, when you got started with computers, did you think security right away, or did you come at it from a programming standpoint? How did you turn sort of this interest in computers into an interest in a security field?
When my interest in computers all started, sadly, I ran into issues all the time. So I had an iPod, but I wanted to put my own music on it. But sadly, they wouldn't allow certain aspects of that. I wanted to download the apps I wanted. So that kind of led me into jailbreaking my iPod, which kind of led me into hacking additional things and really just finding around solutions around problems that I was facing is kind of what led me to security in general.
Yeah, that's it. So it was try to take something that was existing and get it to do what you wanted it to do, but that let you how to understand and exploit vulnerabilities. So that's interesting, because I think a lot of folks come at it from the other side. They try to look at it as a computer science, computer security design type of thing that we're going to start from this side. But you're looking at it from the other side of, hey, that's neat. I wonder what else it can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've always been a tinkerer, so that kind of is what led me along the path I'm on. So
you're a high schooler. You're into computers. Where do you go next? What's the next step, sort of, in your story, Shane?
In high school, my brother and I, we were sort of a little bit of troublemakers. We wanted to go leave high school, on Fridays and stuff, and so we kind of gave our high school a little bit of a free pen test, so to speak.
Nice.
I gave my brother a laptop, and he walked in, and I was just getting started in security, so I didn't really know what I was doing. But I downloaded this old program called Kane Enable. Some people might be familiar with that, but it was like a Windows XP suite of tools that you could basically click a button and it would sniff passwords and whatnot. So I put this on a laptop, hit, sniff passwords, gave it to my brother, and he walked to the school and they started picking up all the grading system passwords because they were unencrypted. And so from there, we found out the grading system, you could log in externally, and one thing led to another, and we had full control of the school's grading system. So yeah.
And so then how did you did that, and then you went on to the next thing, and because that's crazy. That's I mean, that is like something that you see in a TV show. That people do that.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. I ended up graduating. We really didn't do a whole lot of bad stuff with it. We had control. We would tweak stuff here and there. But my brother is the one who actually ended up getting caught, and it was long after I got graduated, and they just sat him down. They're like, "Hey, tell us how you did it," and we won't press charges, and they ended up fixing everything, which is good. So it turned out to be a good thing. But I went on to college, and from there I just got a general degree in IT. But I really was intrigued with hosting things. One cool thing about the community college I was at is they gave us like a server with a public IP, and they're like, do whatever you want. And so Minecraft just came out, which was awesome. And so we would just host these Minecraft servers. So that taught me about Java and programming and Linux. And, it's just a lot of tinkering and playing around with stuff that helped me grow my knowledge, basically.
Are you still, Shane, do you still play around in the Minecraft world?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay.
Yeah, I have an 11-year-old sister, and she's pretty obsessed with it. So it seems to just keep on growing, which is cool.
We've been, in my house, we explore it pretty regularly with the split screen with a couple of kids in the house. And we've been playing Minecraft Dungeons lately, which is not quite in the spirit of the open world, but still a lot of fun to play on the Nintendo Switch. I'm looking forward to a mod community developing around that one, because it is a pretty fun universe to play in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, all right. So you begin playing around, you're in college, you're kind of playing around with the hosts, you're playing around the Minecraft stuff. Where do you go from there? What's the next step?
My family, we were good friends with somebody that owned like a telecommunications company. And so after I graduated, they just kind of brought me on board to help them with like their general IT stuff. And I worked with this guy who basically taught me everything he knew. It was really cool. He taught me like how to code in Excel, and so I learned VB script and all this old like scripting language. And then I converted their entire infrastructure to Linux. As you could tell, I'm a Linux fan, and just really supported them. So I learned a ton off of them. And when I outgrew that role, I eventually applied at a blue team security job at a financial insurance institution. And they kind of took a chance on me, which was awesome. I definitely applied for a job that was a little bit out of my range, but I ended up getting it. And, I just kept on learning from there. I learned a ton at that job. I kind of ran the IDS and IPS devices. I wrote rules. I developed some programs that would tell us when certificates expired in C, and just kind of grew from there. And that role led me to another role that was similar. And then finally I landed at Rapid7. I've been there ever since.
And how long have you been at Rapid7?
I am in my 4th year. So yeah, chugging along to hopefully get to 5 years.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about, a day in the life of Shane Young at, Rapid7? Because I can remember you telling stories of, I dress up as the copier guy to walk in, things like that. And what's a day? What's it like?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a senior penetration tester, basically. So, I work with a wide variety of clients doing a wide variety of tests. We do everything from external, internal, physical, electronic, social engineering, web apps, mobile apps. I'm actually heavily focused in IoT lately, which is really fun. But the funnest engagements, like you said, are the physical ones where we break into buildings. And so, yeah, I think I've told you a few stories, Ernie, but yeah, that's kind of like what we do. We just do a lot of consulting for a lot of different clients.
Shane, have you ever been made or found out, when you're there in a physical pen test and somebody discovers you're not supposed to be there? What is that like?
Yeah, so sadly, it doesn't happen as much as you think, but there is one that comes to mind when you say that. So on one physical engagement I was working for, they were actually like military contractors, but in the private sector. So those guys were ex-military. They're, trained to call you out if you're out of place. And so on this engagement, I was supposed to break into this building and see what I could get. And they told me that, hey, everybody's got guns. And
Oh my.
so tread carefully and don't run if you're caught. So I was like, okay. And so, I talked to a few friends on the phone that I work with, and they were, talking me up. And so I started out, I cased the place. There's cameras in the parking lot. There's cameras outside the building. There was a Starbucks across the street, which was cool. So the first day I sat in that Starbucks, waited for people to come in. A lot of times we try to get people's badges or kind of what they look like so we can copy them and make our own. Sadly, I didn't get anybody there, but while I was at the Starbucks, on social media, I found a few badges and a lot of pictures of the interior of the building. There was an artist who did like a sculpture in the center, and they took pictures and put it on their website. So from those pictures, I was able to kind of figure out the layout of the land. And after that, the next day I was like, all right, I got to get in. I just got to do it. And a lot of times it's all in your head. Like if you just go in and get the job done, a lot of times people don't ever talk to you and stuff. But so I dressed up, I made a badge. I'm all ready to go. I've sat in the parking lot, I'm watching people walk in, and I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I go to walk in, and I head in through the front doors. Everything's great. I see the stairs. I know what I thought was the IT department was upstairs. I was like, oh, I'll head up there. Start walking up the stairs, and immediately the front desk lady is like, hey, what are you doing? Who are you? I'm like, oh, me? This has never happened in my entire career. I'm like, oh, what? She's like, get over here. And so I'm like, okay. And, I didn't run or anything like that, but typically I wait, try to get out of there if all possible. But so I headed on down. She's like, I know you don't belong here. She's like, who are you? What's your name? Who are you here to see? And, I had who I was here to see down. I had all that stuff, but she looked me up in the system and I wasn't supposed to be there. So I was like, hey, this is a test. You did a great job. Let me keep testing and kind of see what I can get. So she let me go. And after that, I headed back upstairs, and there was a locked door that required a badge to get in. And a lot of times we'll try to clone a badge. I have a badge cloner that's pretty big, runs off batteries. I'll put it in my backpack. And I wasn't successful in grabbing any badges. So what I did is I waited for somebody to exit, and I kind of stood by the restrooms, pretended to be on my phone. And as I walked out, I just headed towards the door, grabbed the door before it closed, and walked right in.
Piggybacking. Nice.
Exactly. And so after I was in, I searched for an empty desk, sat down, got my laptop out, and, just started plugging away. And immediately these two ladies come, it's like, oh, hi, who are you? And I'm like, I'm the new guy from IT. I'm here to, I'm starting to work. I work for so-and-so. And they're like, oh, well, where are you from? And they just started quizzing me. And they eventually left me alone. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm all done. I totally, got past these two ladies. And 10 minutes later, the head of IT of security walks up and is like, hey, come with me. And they reported me. So, all in all, that is what you're supposed to do. And they did really good on that engagement. So, yeah, that's my story of getting caught.
That's awesome. I mean, even with the time that you're in on an engagement like that, can you do some damage in just 10 minutes, being inside, or does it take you some time to get up and running?
Oh, definitely. So usually I carry a Dropbox and where I could just plug into the network, It automatically deploys a wireless network I can connect to from outside, and automatically tunnels back to me if it can get internet access. So as long as I can get in and find a network jack, or if they don't have like network access control enabled, usually you can do some damage right then and there. So yeah.
Have you ever been, surprised by some things that you found when you do gain access, like some loot that maybe you didn't anticipate coming across?
Yeah. So this was another physical assessment that I was on. That it was for a check cashing institution, and we were supposed to target their retail locations and their main office buildings. And so first we went into the office buildings, and it was two different ones. The main headquarters, we got some badges, and we created badges, and we started blending in. And we went to the second building, which was not a shared facility. So the first one was shared, so it's a little easier to go in and out because there's other places of work, so you kind of can blend in easier. This one, though, this was just theirs, and so we kind of dressed the role. We dressed like auditors, and it was me and a couple other guys. And so we headed in, and immediately this lady confronts us, and we said, we're here to audit your facilities, and she kind of gave us a little tour around the building, which was really helpful. And we set up shop, and we got a bunch of things. We had the second floor, and there's a server room. Sadly, it was mostly empty because they were migrating all their servers to the cloud. And then eventually we were leaving the facility. It's the end of the day, and we're heading out, and this guy holds the door, and we're like, hey, where did you get that nice little polo with like the logo of the company? Because we knew that we had to do the retail location still. So we're like, that would be really helpful to have. And he's like, oh, there's a basement. There's like stacks of them in the basement. And we're like, me and the other guy look at each other. We're like, basement? Oh, where's that at? And he's like, oh, it's just down this hall, that hall. We ended up searching for this basement. And it took us a little bit because it was hard to find. It was behind this, very blank metal door. And we head down there, and, we find it. And there's generators and pipes, and, it's not looking like there's anything good down here. And we start going through all the rooms, and there was one room that had boxes, and we looked through there, and there was just like everybody who's ever applied at this organization's resume, which had their social security numbers, their bank account for direct deposit. And we're like, oh man, this is crazy. And they're like, we got to find the t-shirts. And so we find a room that's like, it says secure room on it. We're like, okay. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with shimming or lock picking doors, but shimming is kind of like you take this plastic sheet, and if the door isn't set up correctly when it's locked, you can slide it around the door and push the little flappy thing closed. And the door will just open. So this door wasn't set up properly, so I shimmed right in. And this door behind it was the Holy Grail. It had all their shirts, polos, jackets, everything with their company logo. And we're going through, we stuffed our backpacks because the client was obviously okay with it, and we needed them for the retail locations. But the best part was we turned around, and it said, shipped to Iron Mountain. And as you know, Iron Mountain is like the securest shredding location ever. And we're like, oh, what's going to Iron Mountain? And so we walked over there and opened it up, and it looked like envelopes full of cash. I was like, is this cash? No way. Because why would they send it to Iron Mountain? And we opened it up, and it was all checks. Everybody who's ever cashed a check at these locations, it all went to there to ship off to Iron Mountain, and we got our hands on that. So that was probably the best loot I've ever got.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. What do you tell somebody now who's in high school or college who, has the itch for this kind of work, but probably is flirting with using it for good or using it for other reasons? Do you have any advice for them about, looking back on your career?
Yeah, definitely. So you just do what you're passionate about. It's really important to tinker and play with stuff. If you want to learn about hosting or a certain subject, just download it and start messing with it and try to host your own stuff. And that's really how I've learned mostly everything. And then just don't be afraid to get involved, I guess, in doing it. A lot of people are afraid to get started because they think they're going to fail or it seems too complicated, but everybody starts somewhere, and you just continually build on that knowledge.
On that gaining access to the Iron Mountain, what did the clients say when you sat down with the debrief? Were they that's interesting, thank you very much, Mr. Young, or did they freak out and start firing people on the spot?
No. So we try to avoid that at all costs because if they blame it on the people, it's kind of wrong because it's their policies and controls and training that have failed and not the people. And so when we sat down with this point of contact, they were just like, they put their head down and they were just like, oh, we cannot believe you got this far. They're like, great job, guys. This is awesome. I can take all this information and help get the company to invest in training and all that. And regarding the t-shirts, it's like, you could just keep them. Spoils of war. We're like, awesome. So I still have those polos. Some clients are really cool like that, where they want you to find stuff so they can get better. And other clients, they're just checking boxes. And the checking boxes clients are the worst ones to work for, sadly.
Yeah, that seems like you want the ones that are engaged. And I think sadly, a lot of times people view the penetration teams as the folks coming in as the enemy, that they're out to get you and such. And really we're here to try to make things better. The benefit of having that pen test is to find out where are you vulnerable.
It's all about improving. And that's what we try to teach our clients all the time is like, we're on your side. We want to give you as much benefit as possible. I know it seems like we're going against you by breaking into everything, but this is how you learn where you're vulnerable at and how you can improve. So, yeah.
Yeah. And another one, is there the most challenging one?
Yeah, there's been a lot of challenging engagements. There was one that it was an internal pen test. And so the goal was to get their credit cards information, which happened to be on an air-gapped network. So that one was very challenging. I was able to actually get in, and basically it started off as a regular internal pen test. The goal obviously was to get their credit card database with all their credit cards. And so I started off, a lot of times it's not too difficult to escalate to domain admin. And so where you're fully an admin on the network. So this one was a little bit more challenging. They had their ducks in a row, but eventually I was able to escalate up. And once I got those privileges, then I turned my attention to trying to get the loot. And so they told me that, the credit card servers and database were properly segmented, they're air-gapped and all that business. And so once I got domain admin, I took those credentials and I logged into their VMware environment, which is like their, complete virtualized infrastructure. And those servers were running on it. So I was like, okay, awesome. I'll grab the credentials I have and attempt to log in. And so I did, and boom, instantly prompted with second factor authentication. I was like, oh man. I don't know how I'm going to get around this. And so I started thinking outside the box a little bit. So since I couldn't reach them through the network, I did identify that they had a backup server. And this backup server, through its agent, was able to talk to the servers that had the credit card information on them through an agent. So I got on the backup server and I made a snapshot image of the credit card database server, downloaded that image, deployed it on my laptop. The credit card database was a SQL database, Microsoft SQL, but it happened to be encrypted. And so then I had to read all their documentation to figure out where they put their encryption keys, found them, used my passwords from being domain admin to access their shared password resource, which had the key and the password to unlock the key, decrypted the database. But when I finally decrypted it and deployed it on my laptop, all the credit cards were hashed, which is good. So what happens is, like, let's say you type your credit card in on a website, they hash it and they compare that hash with the hashes they have. So they actually don't have your credit card number, but they have the hash of it, which basically is called tokenization for credit cards. So they did all that properly. So I never got any credit card information, but I had their entire database of users. So yeah, that one was very difficult, but very fun and rewarding.
Yeah, it's difficult to say the least, man. But I mean, that goes to show you that everything that you came up, they were doing all the right things. And even at the end, you walked out with a database, but wasn't much you could do with it.
Exactly. And that's kind of where persistence pays off for sure.
That's good too, because I mean, a lot of entities that have had breach events, right, who are assessing the damage done, who do adopt tokenization, it's good for them to hear that it actually, in your case, it worked, and you weren't able to get access to raw numbers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Shane. So, after a short break here, folks, we're going to return with Ernie's lifestyle polygraph. Stay with us, folks.
You are listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Welcome back. Today, we've already learned that Shane is willing to walk through any door, but is he willing to answer any question? Let's find out. Are you ready for the lifestyle polygraph? All right. So this is a series of questions. We got 5 of them. They're going to probe the depths of your personality. So this first one, I'm going to call this a softball. What is more important to a pen tester? Knowledge, creativity, or superior equipment?
Well, I would have to say it's got to be a mix between knowledge and creativity, because I've definitely grown up having very inferior equipment, but able to use it to my advantage. But yeah, I would say for hacking, definitely creativity first and then knowledge after, because you can always get more knowledge, but creativity is hard to find.
All right, the next one. Here we go. This is a little bit more difficult. There's going to be some technical requirements to answer this question. Which type of guitar makes a more satisfying sound? Acoustic or electric?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I have to answer honestly that acoustic.
Really?
There's nothing better than an acoustic guitar, a little bit of whiskey, sitting around a fire in the mountains.
I guess I would expect that. For those that don't know, Shane, tell us a little bit about where you live.
Yeah, so I live pretty remote in Arkansas, in the Ozarks. It's not, I wouldn't say mountainy here, but definitely it's foresty and hilly. But yeah, I do enjoy it.
You don't live next to Jason Bateman, do you?
I don't think so.
If Jason Bateman's listening, the property next door is for sale, so we can fix that, maybe.
That's right.
I got to think, too, that you probably see, back to this superior equipment, question, you probably see, hikers or fishermen come through, straight from the city with the, top of the line expensive stuff. Then they don't know where the trail is or where the fish are,
Actually, yes. There is one person I've met on the lake out here, and he had just a little old John boat, but he looked like he lived in the mountains his whole life, and he was reeling in some fish left and right, no problem.
All right, on to question 3. Here we go. If you could go on any television show or podcast, which one would you go on?
Ooh, that's a tough one. For a television show, I would definitely say the Lego Builders television show. It's pretty awesome. Love Legos. And for a podcast, I gotta say, guys, I do like Joe Rogan. But yeah, it'd be pretty neat.
Nice.
It's a good long form interview. You're like a good, gotta get into it in podcast style. I've been listening to solely horror podcasts since Halloween. I've fallen into a trap and I've got to get out of it. I'm just on my ride in, ride out of work. And so it puts me in the wrong mood to get to work doing cybersecurity. So I got to break out of it. So maybe I'll listen to a little Joe Rogan on the way home today.
There you go. All right, number 4. What is more annoying? The lack of hacker-based television content or inaccurate hacker-based television content?
Ooh, I would have to say inaccurate television content. Sole example, NCIS, where they're both hacking on the keyboard at the same time. That's definitely an icon for us.
Yeah.
The montage, isn't that how it works, Shane? I thought that was how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You just
the more
hack it away.
furious you hack, the better you are, for sure.
I think, though, that the life of a pen tester would make for a great serial, like hour-long drama, right? Because you could it's a new company that you're trying to access every week, new love interests, maybe there's the woman at accounting who lets you into the building. You've got it wrapped up at the end. There's a little complication because you look like you're going to get caught, but then you don't. And then you could have the debrief in the last couple of minutes where you reveal to the company what happens. And then you point out that it was the CFO who was stealing the money all along or something like that.
That's
I
the
have
best.
to agree. Mr. Robot was awesome, but it kind of got a little weird at the end. If they just stuck to the hacking stuff, man, that'd be a A+ TV show for sure.
I'm season 1 ride or die on that. And after that, I'm one season in. That's where I think I would like it to have resolved.
You have to stop there.
And number 5, you have to build the perfect 4-person CTF team. Capture the flag. Who are you recruiting?
Ooh. Well, I'd have to stick to some of my favorite colleagues. One of them is Jonathan Steins that works at Rapid7 with me. Another guy, Nick Powers. He's excellent tester and just highly skilled red teamer. And then Jesse Gardner, who's like top of the line IoT tester. They're all stellar testers and people that I look up to every day for sure.
Are we all correct to be as worried about Internet of Things as we should be? Like is the level of hysteria and concern about hackable devices, is it calibrated correctly, or should we be more concerned, less concerned? What are you seeing out there, Shane?
Oh, I would definitely be more concerned.
Okay.
It's almost too easy at times. I've had the pleasure of testing really, really good devices, and the pleasure of testing really, really bad devices. I've tested smartwatches that you can send a text to that'll send live location data. It was actually a kid's smartwatch, which makes it even scarier. Unencrypted data that basically gives you access to their Amazon S3 buckets. Just a little of everything. It's scary out there for sure.
Yeah, I think I was, our 9-year-old got a smartwatch for Christmas, and the thing is unbelievable. It's very, very cool, and he's into the tech stuff, so he was having a great time with it. And then the other day, he shows me that it's monitoring his sleep when he's asleep and when he's not. And you're like, what is the need for this? Just have it do the things that you want it to do. Let's turn off some of this other stuff, and because that device is not secure in any way.
Yeah, definitely. Rapid7, we actually published a little bit of research on some smartwatch stuff if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, it's similar. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Now, Shane, where can they find that? Is that you go to the website?
Yeah, it's a Rapid7 blog, and I think it's just called Chinese or Amazon smartwatch research.
Yeah, because I think what, like Jack says, we too many of the things, certainly with the IoT connected device, the default setting is everything's on. Everything's on and everything's open, and until you gotta go in, and a lot of times you don't even know that capability exists. That seems to be the trend. Nobody sends you an instruction book anymore. They send you the device, you turn it on and figure it out. And oh, look, there's a secret passageway here in the back.
Yeah, some of the worst things is, IoT vendors, they'll be running Windows XP and they charge you $12,000 to upgrade per device, and IT doesn't want to touch it, and so it just sits there, and it happens to be life-saving equipment as well. So
Unbelievable. They
happen to have it set on the default. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
So all right, on the Legos piece, this is the sort of the debate on Legos. When you're buying Legos as an experienced sort of thinker like this, are you going to buy them in a set, and then are you going to build what it is? Or are you buying them and kind of building your own thing, or a little bit of both? What's the right way to? Do you have a preference or an opinion on the follow the directions or do your own thing?
So growing up, my brother and I, we always just had a hodgepodge mess of Legos, and we would always just do our own thing. But now that I'm a little older, it's kind of cool buying sets. My brother just bought, well, it's not necessarily Lego, but Connect's giant Ferris wheel that's like as tall as you. We've always dreamed of putting that together, and I've always wanted to get the Lego Death Star. I think that would
Yes.
Ah, classic.
Yes.
Classic. Yes.
I've like had my hand on it in the store, and I'm like, it's really expensive. I don't know. And then, but eventually, I'm going to get it. Like that's kind of how my view on it is. I might as well go get it. Eventually, I will.
See, when you grow up and you're an adult, you finally have money to spend, but you might as well just live out your childhood dreams. Right?
You see, that's what I can't. I have to be quiet so my kids don't actually hear this. Yeah, why do you think they get all the Lego stuff for Christmas? It's not because they get to put it together.
Exactly.
What do you mean the Lego? What do you mean the Lego Boba Fett set? I didn't want that, Dad. Oh no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and they get to grow up in like the best part of Star Wars ever. I mean, I wish I had all this stuff when I was growing up.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that. You're exactly correct, man. The coolest things that I had is Star Wars. The old timey action figures. That the arms only moved. They didn't have any elbows, and the lightsaber actually was in the wrist. Came out. And then my favorite one was the Obi-Wan Kenobi one. He had the plastic cape on.
I think the Poe Dameron X-Wing is about as cool as you get. We've done some Poe Dameron X-Wings for in Legos, and that's like awesome. I thought Rogue One was fantastic, and then some of the plots. That's a rewatchable for me all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rogue One is excellent.
Now I know we're going to go a little bit of far afield, but that's okay. Mandalorian, your thoughts?
Oh, A+. It's awesome. We binge watch it and then we watch it again and again. So yeah, we usually watch each episode a couple times. It's good stuff.
I mean, I hate to say we have to do spoiler alert, but I had to say I was with season 2 started off slow, but came out of the gate, finished up strong. I was really impressed with that.
Oh man, when they brought in so many characters from the animated series, everybody's like, "Oh, this is awesome!" So like diehard fans, Disney's just done a great job with it, I gotta say. And visually, it's so nice to watch.
So, Shane, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. It's been great talking to you, great catching up. Hearing about Legos and campfires, and we didn't get to talk about the chickens, but something to come back to. So before you go, is anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah. First, thank you guys for having me. It was definitely an honor, and I had a lot of fun. So thank you. And I just like to say, if anybody's interested in Rapid 7 research, you can check out our blog. We post a lot of cool stuff. And if you want to learn about hacking, just keep tinkering and help out in open source tools and just keep hacking stuff. That's what we do.
All right. Well, again, thanks, Shane, for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
There's a place for everyone in the world of cybersecurity, and Pablo Torres plans to prove it. Welcome to Positively Cyber.
Okay, welcome back. And now it's time for Positively Cyber with Pablo Torres. Pablo, your show, sir.
Thank you, Ernie. Welcome to Positively Cyber. I'm your host, Pablo Torres. As we continue to build our cybersecurity team, I took a moment to reflect on our first 2 hires, Star-Lord and John Wick. I noticed that relationships and family are not only essential parts of their lives, they are the largest part of what motivates our cyber warriors. With that in mind, we will continue to prioritize adding people that will enrich company culture and create an environment where all employees know that they can count on the individual next to them in any situation, whether professional or personal. Within this community, we are one. We are one cognizant force, all committed to the mission. With that in mind, we are taking a close look at the resume of Mulan. Our hero was first introduced to us cleverly utilizing her puppy's rambunctious over-the-top energy to complete her daily chores, while her dog, motivated by a brilliant contraption that she devised, fed the chickens. Mulan was able to make tea for her father and prepare for an upcoming test. Now, admittedly, this is not a world-changing accomplishment. However, it does showcase that creative spark that is often the difference between a successful and unsuccessful network defense professional, whose primary mission is to ensure that the network firewall is properly calibrated to ensure that no malicious domains nor nefarious IPs are establishing an outbound or inbound connection with the corporate ecosystem. The weight of Mulan's story lies in her decision to deceive the military and fulfill a higher purpose, saving her father. Her story is about choices and honor. Mulan chooses to ignore the convention of simply being an asset to her family. She instead chooses to protect her family and serve her country. She was prepared to fight side by side with the people that would not at all approve of her being. So how does she take on the task of defending her country while honoring her family and maintaining anonymity? Great question. Mulan, the film that inspired us, is about a young woman who became a soldier who became a leader, and a leader who is destined to become a legend. To be termed as a legend, one has to go through a lot of hardships and achieve beyond any reasonable outcome. To say the very least, her story measures up. Hua Mulan's alter ego Ping struggled mightily to earn the respect of her soldiers that he served with. Everything changed when she became obsessed with the seemingly impossible task of retrieving the arrow that General Li Shang placed at the top of the 20-foot pole. This challenge would be difficult enough without any other obstacles, but he added two weights that represented discipline and strength to ensure that only a warrior with superior strength and intelligence would be able to return the arrow to General. After failing several times, Mulan reevaluated the situation and turned the weights into an asset by using them to help her climb the pole and drop the arrow at General Li Shang's feet. This was the beginning of her path to gaining the approval of her fellow soldiers. Her status as a skilled and fearless warrior was further cemented after saving her regiment from being firebombed by distracting the enemy and causing them to launch a fireball onto the mountain, which then triggered an avalanche. Talk about keenly astute. Now translate this sly strategical decision into cybersecurity, and this action is comparable to that of a savvy network defender identifying a critical server that is being targeted by an APT, which then prompts the network defender to swap the business asset with a honeypot that can then be used as a guise to lure bad guys to disclosing their attack logic, so that in turn, this intel can be shared with the larger cybersecurity team to perform threat research on any potential vulnerabilities that the organization could be exposed to. Decisive action like this can be used to detect attacks or deflect them from a legitimate target. It can also be used to gain information about how the cyber criminals operate. The emperor that Mulan once served claimed, "A single grain of rice can tip the scale. One man may be the difference between victory and defeat. We hear your wisdom, wise emperor," and we agree. After all, a woman like Mulan does not come around every dynasty. From defending the dynasty to building an impenetrable firewall, we welcome you to our family, Hua Mulan.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Pablo Torres.
I just want to, I like it, and I think Mulan's, the example with the fireball is a great one, right? For the reasons you stated, but I'm glad that we're dealing with the cartoon version of Mulan and not the live action version of Mulan on Disney Plus. I've seen both, enjoy both movies, but the cartoon is canon. And so I think we have to evaluate it that way. That was what I think that for certain. She can also disguise herself, right? I mean, she disguised herself as a man to get into the military to serve in her father's place, which itself has many applications. As we heard some of Shane's adventures, I think she could be useful for physical incursions as well as what she can do behind a keyboard.
Yeah, I think, the story is a great tale. Like you mentioned it, creating that distraction to determine the enemy's intent. I mean, you setting up that honeypot and then moving on. And then also the other part to add, the grain of rice can tip the scales. So what that tells me is every little bit counts, and everybody on the team can contribute that grain of rice. Before you know it, scales are going to tip in favor.
Absolutely, and it's slick to say, in the very least words that I can say. I think what she adds to her team is a lot more than just a strategical advantage, which is her cunning way to outwit the enemy. But she provides a beacon of hope that demonstrates that, hey, given the obstacle, there's always going to be a solution. It's just a matter of how hard we're willing to work for it. And bringing it back to Shane, his creative approach to penetration testing tells me that when it comes to education, it's probably the most important resource that we could ever accumulate. Education is how to find what you need when you need it. So when Mulan needed it the most, she found a way to go ahead and overcome the adversity. And like Shane, when he needed it the most, he found those shirts at the bottom of the basement. And next thing you know, he fell into a loot of treasure.
That is exactly true. And that brings us to the end of our program. So thank you again for joining us. First and foremost, I have to thank my co-hosts, Jack Clabby and Pablo Torres. And also thank you to our guest, Shane Young, a man who knows that, acoustic guitars are a lot better when you sit around the campfire, and that creativity and knowledge are way more valuable than superior equipment. So, thank you very much, and remember to rate, review, and subscribe to No Password Required podcast, and send your questions and comments to info@nopasswordpodcast.com. I'm Ernie Ferraresso, and thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the No Password Required podcast. The show is produced by Cyber Florida. A special thanks goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields and Cognizant. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, visit our website, cyberflorida.org/pod.